Okay, I'll just briefly introduce. We also have Miss S here, who's from Valenzuela, a region in, a city in Metro Manila. She says that the communities are the best to consult and to be partners with when it comes to disaster risk reduction management, because the communities are the ones who are most um, affected by all these activities, all the climate change effects, the negative impacts immediately affect most vulnerable, which is them. So they bring a human touch to the development aid and to the humanitarian aid that comes into the activities, and they are able to make suggestions that are not in the frame of mind of of possible development organizations. She says that she's run into two major problems when it comes to trying to implement proactive disaster reduction and climate change adaptation. One is primarily the difficulty if the communities are not organized, which she says is why they exist as an organization, why it's so important that they keep organizing the communities and whatnot. Second is that there may be some issues when it comes to the capacity of the local government, because there are varying levels of participation that the communities um, want to have with the local government. Some have more want to work more with the local government, but sometimes that the government doesn't have the capacity to assist them in the needs that they want. So she suggests that hopefully there are more programs or more opportunities for stronger collaboration between the local government and the communities in their area, so that there is an increasing capacity on both ends, where the communities develop. Um, so the on-the-ground implementation of the disaster resilient projects come through, and also the local government's capacities increase so that they can better um, implement these projects with themselves. Okay.
Great. I now invite the Nepal team to join on the same point. Organized communities make very good partners.
Celine?
Lajana?
Yes, Nepal team is, I think, is still trying to join. Maybe others can speak, and Nepal community leader from Nepal can speak later on. Okay.
Is Bangladesh here? Is Kabir, are you here? Junaida, who is there from Junaida?
Rubaya has raised her hand, Celine. Rubaya wants to speak.
Yeah, Rubaya, can she come in? I don't know why it's getting a problem. Why can Rubaya come in?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Rubaya, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Rubaya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. So just to add with that organized communities, how do they help? I'd just like to start with the fact that the word climate change, the people we work with, the communities, they don't even know the word, but they are the people who gets affected the most. They know what changes, what impacts it brings to their lives and their livelihoods, their security, their development. As a whole, when they come together, or when they work together to face a disaster or a pandemic, that's when they come together, they take a step, and when the local government or other stakeholders join their hands, they take steps forward. That's how it sort of spreads citywide network, and which sort of helps the other cities or other networks to learn from each other. And the fact that the communities who are disproportionately affected by the climate change effects in many skills, but they're trying in they're taking small steps, right? So that they are working cohesively, they are co-creating their spaces, be it housing or be it gardening. They take these small steps, and when the city authority, on the local authorities join their hand, they take that step further. For example, we have seen in Jinaida, like the whole city people came together to talk or think about to design their riverside, right? So they've been from different gender and different age groups, people started talking about like what to do, how to revive this. And simultaneously, when they came together and they showed their ideas, they expressed their ideas to the city authority, and they partnered with the city authority, and then they both sort of owned, had that feeling of ownership to those designs and to those experiences of the city. So they came together in that way. So from our experience, we can say that in Dhaka, or even in mostly in Jinaida, like partnering with local authority has really spread the network in a very positive way. And it was only possible because the communities were already working together, and they were already trying to solve their issues, and they're proactively working towards these issues. Thank you.
Okay. So we heard from Rubaya why organized communities really help when it comes to negotiating with local government, and how they have been able to do that in the city of Junaida, not just in one small community, but citywide with all the riverside communities. Now we will go to the next discussion point, because the Nepal team has not yet joined, and we will give them an opportunity to connect at the end. But the second discussion point that came out from the preparation in the ACHR discussion was communities make unsafe spaces safer. And they said this because they said communities continuously are improving their homes and the land in which their homes are built on and the environment around it all the time. They want to make a better life for their children, and they can constantly put resources to improve their living conditions. However, those resources are not enough, and they are not able to find long-term solutions because of the fear of being evicted or not having security of tenure. But they do their best. So as far they do half of the job that the city does. So we want to now build on this point with examples from Indonesia and again from Bangladesh or Nepal. On how can you give us examples when you make the statement communities make unsafe places safer? Substantiate this with examples from your context. Indonesia.
Vidya has raised her hand. Maybe you should allow her to speak. Celine.
Hello. Can
Vidya.
you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I will translate to Mrs. Wati. She will be answering from Indonesia. Mbak Wati, aku translate ya. Kedengeran kan? Can you please unmute Minawati too? She will be the one answering. Hello, Mbak Wati. Celine, can you please unmute Minawati too from Jakarta?
Could you please write her name, Vidya, in the chat,
Okay.
that we can ask? Celine, could you help?
I can hear Vidya.
Yes, you are ready?
She wants Minawati to be.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My name is
Ya, ya. Oke.
Jakarta.
Oke, Mbak Wati, aku transfer pertanyaannya ya. Jadi tadi Sally nanya tentang ini kan komunitas nih, misal kayak JRMK, dia proaktif membuat ruang-ruang di kampungnya lebih aman, lebih nyaman gitu. Tapi kan tentu ada keterbatasan sumber daya ya, dan misalnya ya sumber daya, uang, tenaga, lalu juga banyak hal yang masih belum beres, seperti misalnya keamanan bermukimnya belum sampai gitu. Itu gimana kasusnya kalau di Jakarta?
Kami di Jakarta memang sangat selama pemerintahnya Anies Baswedan kami sangat baik berhubungan dengan pemerintah daerah Jakarta ya. Khususnya kami sering melakukan follow up, apakah kegiatan kami belum tercapai, setiap 2 minggu sekali kami follow up, misalnya soal konsolidasi lahan misalnya.
Okay, so with the new governor Anies Baswedan in Jakarta, governor of Jakarta, the communities are having good relation with the government. Like they have routine meetings, they have targets since the political contract. They have target and progress checking every month, and then they keep in touch with more severe issues such as the land issue for each of the kampung in the community. They keep the progress with the routine meetings. Lanjut, Mbak.
Ya, kami rutin untuk follow up, misalnya soal konsolidasi lahan, bagaimana kampung tidak tergusur tetapi digeser, atau kami membuat kampung susun tetapi kami yang merancang bersama pendamping, bentuk bangunannya, semuanya itu prinsip-prinsip bangunannya itu kami yang komunitas yang melakukan itu.
Yeah, so for example, for the land issue, the community also has the technical assistance. For example, like a group of young architects, they make a proposal to give to the provincial government for land consolidation, for example, to not affect the kampung, but to reshape it into vertical kampung, etc.
Nah, kalau soal kenyamanan tempat tinggal, nah di Jakarta itu kan ada soal namanya zonasi. Kami ada zonasi yang mengancam, biasanya zonasi juga dipakai untuk penggusuran. Nah, kami juga mencoba berkolaborasi dengan pemerintah untuk merubah zonasi kami, misalnya tadinya untuk kota, atau tadinya untuk pariwisata, atau tadinya untuk tempat air atau laut, kami mengajukan untuk tempat tinggal.
Yeah. And as for the secure tenure problem, in Jakarta, usually the land zonation, like the different land zonation, become the #1 reason for evictions. But for these past years, the community network already worked with the government to change the zonation for all the kampung into a housing zonation. So it can be a reason for them to get evicted anymore.
Cukup, Pak.
All right. Right, it's done from Minawati.
Great. So would Bangladesh like to come in, or Philippines like to come in on this point? Community make unsafe places safer.
Janet will speak in behalf of the Philippines.
Okay, Janet.
Hello po, Miss Janet.
Janet.
Wala. Janet Mandin. Miss Ruby, mag-share ka rin po about urban gardening dito. No?
Janet Mandin needs to be allowed. Yeah.
She's raised a hand.
Yeah, her name is in the...
Celine?
Yes, Lajna.
Lakshmi Tara from Nepal would like to speak, and she needs access to speak.
Yes, hello.
Okay, Janet has come, and we'll keep Lakshmi in the line. Ikat team, please help with Lakshmi next.
Hello, Miss Janet.
Yes po, Tagalog ko na lang po.
Sige po, yung nakuha niyo po yung tanong?
Yes po.
Sige.
Sige po. Isang sample ko na lang po siguro yung ginawa ng Arroyo Compound po, na meron silang 3,000 families. Dahil po ang kanilang community ay nakapalibot sa ilog, so gumawa po sila ng isang bamboo bridge. So ito po yung kanilang paraan para maging safe po yung kanilang mga members na dadaan po papuntang palabas, lalo na po yung mga bata palabas po ng kanilang community. Isa din po yung sa ginawa din pong proyekto ng sa Josa, na parang riprap din po sa kanilang daanan para mabawasan po yung erosion na nangyari. So nagkaroon po sila ng riprapping project dito. At saka meron din po silang mga community initiatives tulad po ng community garden na kanilang ginawa along the coastal. So ito pong mga proyektong ito ay nakatulong sa kanila upang ma-sustain po yung kanilang food security dito sa community at mayroong mga fresh na mga gulay na ina-supply po nila sa kanilang mga members. So isa din po, lagi pong nagkaroon ng coastal cleanup every Saturday at nagtatanim po sila ng mga mangrove trees para po ma-prevent po yung malalaking waves na tatama sa kanilang bahay at nakapagtulong din po ito upang ma-save din po yung mga habitat ng mga sea creatures. Bukod din po nito, parang isa din pong paraan para magkaroon pa ang ginawa din ng communities yung mga plastic recyclables at saka yung mga papers po. Ginawa po itong isang produkto upang maging income din po, dagdag income para sa mga community.
Sige po. Clarify ko lang yung sa Arroyo compound, 3,000 families po.
Yes po, ang nakatira sa Arroyo compound.
Opo, tapos nagtayo po ng
Bamboo
tulay.
bridge. Yes po.
Okay. Sige pa. Okay, thank you. So Miss Janet talks about communities in Davao, that's in Mindanao or the southern region of the Philippines, where many of our communities are conducting activities that are supporting the environment, making it better and more useful for both the communities while also creating a more green space for the communities and everyone who lives there. So one example that she gives is on a place called the Arroyo compound, who housed 3,000 families. Over a bridge, they built over a river, they built a bamboo bridge to connect the communities to the main areas. By doing this, they were able to create a more accessible movement, more accessible entrance for communities to both enter and exit their community. And they did this with sustainable materials, while also making sure that there is the integrity to the bridge and whatnot. Another community that she cites is Sajusa, where they built multiple infrastructure to support their lifestyle. Sajusa is a coastal community, so it's near the ocean. One of the things that they built is a riprap. A riprap is the permanent layer of cobblestones to make sure that the waves don't break first in that area before it enters the city or the communities. So they're able to create all these activities to make sure that there is less prevent disasters in their areas. Apart from these activities, they also mention one thing is the community initiatives for the garden. So this is a community initiative that they have in their coastal area, where they've created gardens in their field that both create more green spaces for the people living there, but while also providing more food security, because they're able to provide and produce vegetables and subsistence food for themselves. They also cite that they're able to plant more mangroves in the area to build more to break the waves coming in from the shore. So one major disaster that happens in the Philippines always is in typhoons and also disasters made because communities are near the ocean. So these are one of the bigger things that they've been doing, that they cite that is important, because as communities they see the value of creating all these mangroves, whereas it would be a different story if a different institution was there. If it okay, they cite another example of creating plastic recyclables using the trash that they find during their coastal cleanups. Part of their activities is also making sure that the coast is clean, and they're able to make use of that, and also try to produce income from it by creating plastic bottles. They're green, and we turn them into like Christmas decorations, so that and other activities, so that uh, these things don't go to waste. So they're actually a famous item in the Philippines that a lot of foreigners also purchase. So these are the examples that Miss Janet said. Miss Ruby, may dadagdag ka po ba?
Mamaya na lang. Sila lang
Sige.
muna.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We're done.
Okay, so now we ask Lakshmi from Nepal, who's just joined in, to tell us how communities make unsafe places safer.
लक्ष्मी तारा होइन, समुदायले हाम्रो समुदायहरूले असुरक्षित स्थानहरूलाई कसरी सुरक्षित पारेको छ अरे, कसरी सुरक्षित बनाएको छ?
अब म्युट हुनुहुन्छ लक्ष्मी ताराजी, अनम्युट गर्नुहोस् न।
नमस्ते सबैजनालाई, म लक्ष्मी तारा थेचौबाट र म सिडब्ल्युबाट पनि हुँ। र हामीले चाहिँ यो असुरक्षित ठाउँलाई भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीले काम गरेको र हामीले अनुभव गरेको कुरा बताउन चाहन्छु। यो हाम्रो ठाउँ, हाम्रो कम्युनिटीमा भएको चाहिँ यो फोहोरहरू भयो होइन, अनि जस्तै नाली भयो, त्यो ढलहरू चाहिँ सरसफाइ गरेर चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ पानी घरहरूभित्र चाहिँ पानी पस्ने अवस्थालाई चाहिँ हटाएका छौँ। यो काम चाहिँ हामीले नगरपालिकासँग मिलेर ठाउँ ठाउँमा चाहिँ गरेको छौँ। दिदी
हजुर, सुनिरहेछु।
दिदीले भनिदिनुहोस् न कि म कन्टिन्यू भन्दै जाने?
म भन्छु है। Okay, I'll just translate what Lakshmi Tara has just said. She is Lakshmi Tara from Thecho community, also belongs to Community Women's Forum in Nepal. She just said that, okay, they have been working together with the municipality and the ward offices, working together to clean the drainage system and also managing the waste as well. That has actually helped water not to enter the houses. So that's how they have been actually contributed in making the communities safer. Okay, she's going to continue speaking. Lakshmi Tara.
यस्तै गरी चाहिँ हाम्रो अब हाम्रो कम्युनिटीमा चाहिँ यस्तो बाढी पहिरो भनौँ न, पहिरोको अवस्थामा पनि ठाउँको बस्तीहरूलाई चाहिँ त्यसमा बढी जोखिमयुक्त ठाउँहरूमा चाहिँ हामीले त्यसलाई चाहिँ पहिरो जान नदिनलाई चाहिँ बारहरू लगाउने होइन, अनि त्यस्तै पर्खालहरू लगाउने र त्यस्तै गरी क्रेटहरू राख्ने, धेरै गहिरो ठाउँमा चाहिँ क्रेटहरू राखेर चाहिँ आफ्नो बस्तीलाई चाहिँ सुरक्षित बनाएका छौँ।
Some of the communities are vulnerable to landslides, so they have also worked, they have also worked to make the communities safer from the landslide as well. So they have constructed retaining walls, crater, done so many those kind of things to make the communities safer.
यसको लागि पनि हामीले नगरपालिकासँग वडासँग चाहिँ समन्वय गर्दछौँ र यस्तै गरेर चाहिँ अब विभिन्न ठाउँमा चाहिँ पहिरोलाई रोक्न र आफ्नो बस्तीलाई जोगाउन, अब त्यो पहिरोबाट आफ्नो जग्गाहरू पनि खेतबारी जग्गाहरू जस्तै खोलाको किनार वरिपरि सबै बगाउने खालकोहरूमा चाहिँ रुखहरू रोप्ने र अनि त्यो पहिरोबाट नजाओस् भनेर चाहिँ भिरपाखाहरूमा चाहिँ हामीले टाइममा चाहिँ अब त्यो वर्षको एकचोटि भनौँ न, त्यो असार श्रावणतिर चाहिँ वृक्षारोपण गर्ने कार्यक्रमहरूमा चाहिँ हामी भाग लिन्छौँ र आफूहरू पनि अगाडि सर्छौँ त्यो वृक्षारोपण गर्न।
They have also been engaged and also promoting also in the plantation program to save the land along the river side and along the river side, so that they have been promoting, engaged and also promoting reforestation program, plantation program in order to save the areas alongside the river from flooding. at least like, once every year, they have been doing these activities in coordination with the municipalities.
यस्तै गरी ठाउँ ठाउँमा चाहिँ अब फोहोर व्यवस्थापन गर्ने रूपमा चाहिँ त्यो ठाउँ ठाउँमा चाहिँ मान्छेहरूले चाहिँ फोहोर फ्यालिरहेको हुन्छ त्यसलाई पनि रोक्न र त्यो फोहोर फ्याला त्यो पहिरोमा परेर चाहिँ सबै त्यो बगाउने हुन्छ त्यसको लागि चाहिँ हामीले ठाउँ ठाउँमा चाहिँ बार लाउने काम पनि गर्दछौं.
So see, the waste management is actually done very haphazardly. People have been throwing the waste in a haphazard manner, and when in the months and when it rains and when the landslide actually happens, it the waste is actually the waste is actually pushed down and then it pollutes the river. So to prevent this kind of activity, they have also been constructing the bar in order to in order to save the rivers from getting polluted from the west and to prevent it to get polluted. So they have been working together in coordination with the municipalities in all these activities in order to implement all this kind of like protection activities.
यस्तै गरी चाहिँ हाम्रो अनुभवमा चाहिँ हामीले यो 2070 सालको भुइँचालो 72 सालको भुइँचालो पछि चाहिँ अब कम्युनिटीमा चाहिँ धेरै जना अब घरविहीन र अब घरबारविहीन भएपछि टेन्टहरुमा पालहरुमा बस्नु परेको थियो हैन त्यति बेला चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ आफ्नो बस्तीमा बसेको असुरक्षित भन्नु न असुरक्षित ठाउँमा बस्नु परेकोहरुलाई चाहिँ हामीले टेन्टमा सुरुमा त टेन्ट नै भयो त्यसपछि चाहिँ हामीले टराहरु वितरण गर्नलाई चाहिँ हामीले समन्वय गरेर काम गरेको थियो.
After the big earthquake in Nepal, they have also been engaged in promoting in the construction of temporary shelters in order to support the families, vulnerable families, to live temporarily in the safe shelters. लक्ष्मीतारा यही रोके हुन्छ अर्को मान्छे नि भन्नुपर्छ.
हुन्छ हस् दिदी यस्तै गरेर चाहिँ अब हामीले 192 चाहिँ टेम्पोररी सेन्टरहरु वितरण गर्यौं. यति नै भन्न चाहन्छु.
So they have actually supported temporary shelters to 192 families for the vulnerable families, the earthquake victims.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank
Fantastic.
you, Lachimtara.
So we will now go to the third discussion point, or unless Bangladesh or somebody wants to add to this point of communities make unsafe places safer. If there's anybody who wants to add to it, they can add to it. If not, we go to the third discussion point. I'll give you 2 minutes to decide.
I think we can go to the next discussion.
Okay, so the third discussion point was more resilience costs more money. Making houses and the environment more resilient costs money, and communities cannot do that on their own. And the Nepal communities once again had many examples of how they had to increase the costs of foundation of their houses in order to make their houses more resilient. So I will once again invite the Nepal team to talk about the examples of what they mean when they make the statement, more resilience costs more money.
Rajesh from Nepal need access to speak, Celine, here. He's raising hand to speak.
Okay, Rajesh, I can't see your hand raised, but somebody can see it. Zoom team, ICA team, we need help. Rajesh wants to speak.
Rajesh Niraula.
I've given him access.
Okay, he's here. Okay, Rajesh ji.
नमस्कार दी.
राजेश जी अहिले तपाईले के भन्नु पर्यो भने हैन यो जुन अहिले जुन यो छ नि हामीले घरहरु जुन महँगो गरेर बनाए नि बाढी बस्नको लागि सुरक्षित रहनको लागि त्यो बारे तपाईहरुले गर्नु भएको प्रयास अलिकति बताइदिनुस् न विराटनगरको.
विराटनगरमा चाहिँ पूर्वमा सिङ्गिया खोला र पश्चिममा केसलिया खोलाले विराटनगरलाई घेरेको छ. पहिला चाहिँ यो बाढीहरु त्यति आउँदैन थियो. अहिले पछिल्लो क्रममा चाहिँ बाढीहरु आउने गरेकोले हाम्रो पुराना घरहरु चाहिँ डुब्ने भइसकेपछि अहिले हाम्रो समुदायहरुमा चाहिँ नयाँ घर बनाउँदाखेरि त्यसलाई चाहिँ करिब आफ्नो छातीसम्मको उचाइमा बनाएर बनाउनु पर्छ. जसले गर्दाखेरि हाम्रो फाउन्डेसन कस्ट नै अहिले बढी परिराख्ने भइरहेछ. अहिले
यहाँ एकछिन है So he's Rajesh Nirola from Biratnagar, and what he's saying is like, so these days in some of the communities in Biratnagar metropolitan city has started now getting flooded in the monsoon, and for that reason, people have actually started building high level plinth in order to protect the water to get into the houses. So that means like, they have to spend more money, they have to invest more in building a resilient house. Yeah, अनि राजेश जी भन्नुहोस् त.
हजुर दी, अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि कस्तो छ भने
भन्नुहोस् न.
I think Rajesh ji got disconnected.
No. कनेक्सनमा आयो.
तपाईँ भिडियो बन्द गर्नुहोस् न अनि बोल्नुहोस् मात्रै भिडियो ल भन्नुहोस् न.
देखिर हाम्रो समुदाय चाहिँ अब गरिब समुदाय भएको हुनाले घर बनाउँदा यिनीहरूको कस्ट नै धेरै परेको हुनाले अहिले घरमा चाहिँ उनीहरूको ढोका चाहिँ राखेको हुन्छ, झ्यालो राख्न सक्ने खालको अवस्थै भइराखेको हुँदैन.
Because now the communities now they have to invest more on the foundation to make it, to raise it higher in order to save it from the flooding, right? So they have not been able to complete the houses. So they have not been able to put the door, window, because the communities are poor. And even to, to build a house, they have to borrow the money, they have to take loan. And so the foundation, now they have to spend more in the foundation. So they have not been able to put the door and the windows. So the houses remain incomplete. अनि राजेशजी भन्नुहोस् त अर्को के छ?
हामीले नगरपालिकालाई खोलाहरूमा चाहिँ तटबन्ध बाँधिदिनु पर्यो, तटबन्ध नभएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि बाढी आएर हामीलाई वर्षिनी दुःख दियो भनेर हामीले अनुरोध त गरिरहेका छौँ. नगरपालिकाले बनाउनु चाहिँ भनिरहेको छ योजनामा, तर ठुलो लागत खर्च हुने भएको हुनाले बनाउन सकिरहेको छैन.
They have also been coordinating the municipalities in order to prevent the communities from flooding, but the municipality has not been able to make any investment, to save the communities from getting flooding, or neither any kind of like, subsidies also to the households to build the houses. Okay, sir? Okay, that's all from Rajesh ji.
पुरुषोत्तम जी भन्ने एकजनाले फोन उठाइराख्नु भएको छ. पुरुषोत्तम सिंह. हजुर, तपाईको अनम्युट गर्नुस् न पुरुषोत्तम जी. हजुर
हजुर नमस्ते. म चाहिँ विराटनगरबाट यो बाढीले एफेक्टेड एरियाबाट हो. राजेश जीसँग पनि छ कन्ट्याक्ट. उहाँले पनि धेरै सहयोग गर्नुभएको छ. हाम्रो लुमन्ती भन्ने संस्थाबाट. अनि यहाँ चाहिँ के छ भने समस्या, वर्षै पहिला त सुरुमा हामी बस्दा बाढी त त्यति वर्षै पछि आउँदैन थियो. अनि अब खोला नाला सानो हुँदै गयो. अब यो महानगरपालिका हुँदै यो विकासको नाममा खोला नाला सानो गर्दै गए. अनि निकासी नभएर अनि अब वर्षै पछि बाढी आउने भइरहेछ. अनि त्यसमा के छ भने अब पहिला सामान्य पानी नर्मल तल अलिअलि पानी आउँथ्यो, गइसक्थ्यो. अब चाहिँ पानी आउँदा घरहरू सबै डुब्ने गरी नै आउन थालेको छ. अब त्यसमा हामी हरेक वर्ष जस्तै अब यो पालि यति पानी आयो अनि घर सर गयो. अनि त्यो भन्दा अब यति पानी आयो, अब यो भन्दा बढी भनेर हाइट गरेर घर बनाउँछौँ. अनि फेरि अर्को पल्ट त्यो भन्दा पनि बढी पानी आइदिरहेको हुन्छ क्या. मेन समस्या त्यो हो. अनि जति नै अब दरो बनाउँदा यता गर्दा पनि भइरहेको छैन. अनि निकै दरो बनाउनलाई चाहिँ पुरा खर्च चाहिँ धेरै नै लाग्ने हुन्छ, धेरै नै. त्यो सकिँदैन. हामी दैनिक काम गरेर खाने टाइपको मान्छे, अनि सकिँदैन त्यसरी.
Okay, what he is saying is like, see, because of the development projects, the rivers are getting narrow, like, it's getting narrow, and every year the flood is, the flood is affecting the communities, and every year even the level of water is rising very high. Every year it's rising very high, and they have not. It's very difficult for them to make investment in building a resilient house. And for the poor people like themselves, it's very hard to afford to build a resilient house.
हजुर
Dhanyabad.
Thank you very much. That was very good. Any more examples of more resilience costs more money?
Celine, Sonia, raise hand.
Great. So why can't Sonia come in? I don't see her in the list.
Sonia, you can unmute and talk, I think.
Yeah, I think Sonia can come in.
Okay.
Hello po, Miss Sonia.
It's quite strange because we cannot see our names in the the usual Zoom, so we're a bit confused.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, I think the discussion around uh, the housing that is very expensive, the experience of the federation in the Philippines is that we try to link with the government for all the infrastructure of the, for example, like in Iloilo City, when we have the resettlement site, and those people that were affected by the disaster was relocated to the land that was bought by the government. So the problem is that when government provides land, it's a raw land, and infrastructure and housing has to follow. So on the part of the federation, we were able to develop this scheme. We call it this community-led housing, because if you're going to build a complete house, it's very expensive, and people cannot afford to be able to repay, just like what Jana is saying, that they have to take a loan. But when you do it incrementally, for example, like you have to only develop the important part of the house, and then incrementally the member family has to slowly develop that later according to his or her affordability. So that's one of the strategy, and to be resilient, because if you're going to develop to build a house and then you use lighter materials, and then when typhoon came, it will be destroyed, or the roof will be blown up, or when flood came again, and then your house is again will be destroyed. So that's the problem. So with us, we tried to look for some materials that are very effective and very strong. Like we go into alternative building technology. This is one of the strategy of the federation, so that we can save costs. Alternative building technology that is available, and at the same time, the cost is also cheaper. And we have to combine the incremental building at the same time using the alternative building technology. Just now we're using the bamboo materials, which is accessible to the families, and it's also less expensive. So that's one of the strategy. At the same time, we have to combine our strategy with continuous engagement with the government, because when we talk of the housing, it's not only the house alone, but it includes also the infrastructure like roads, drainage, and the basic services. So this is now the role of the federation to lobby for this basic development that has to be the counterpart of the city. And with this, in some parts of the city, in some of our communities where development is very slow, we encourage a self-help community-led upgrading strategies, where they have to, on their own, through their savings, mobilization savings program, we were able to make communities do some little upgrading on their site, especially in the resettlement site or some private land that was acquired by the community itself. So these strategies has to be combined, and at the same time engaging government to be part of all these local development plans, because of the technical working groups, where it is in this council or in this group that was created by the city, the federation has to get involved, because in this kind of platform, we can lobby for the site development of all the land that the federation has acquired, or at the same time, you can lobby for the basic infrastructure. So it is very important to be part of this development council that was created by the city government. So it is also the role of the federation to strengthen this kind of engagement, so that the initiatives of the government by buying the land, and the counterpart of the community is also to build a resilient house, incremental housing should combine, and it will result to at least a sustainable partnership within the communities.
Excellent, excellent. And we know that communities cannot do that totally on their own, and they need the support of their local government and other actors in the climate world and funders who can support these kind of local processes.
Yes.
Now we go to the fourth discussion point, Sonia, which came up, which is evicting people is not a solution, and therefore it makes the situation even worse off for all these communities. Communities have proven to be an asset and part of the solution, making cities more resilient. Indonesia, we'd like you to speak.
Yeah, Indonesia.
Evicting people is not the solution. Can you speak on that? Because they use climate as an excuse and say, because you're in a vulnerable location, now you have to leave this place and you cannot continue to live here.
Ya, Mbak Wati, pertanyaan yang keempat ini adalah temanya tentang penggusuran. Gimana penggusuran itu bukan solusi. Terus gimana komunitas yang ada di kota merupakan aset, harusnya menjadi bagian dari solusi. Solusi tersebut, solusi akan perumahan, gitu. Terutama soal krisis iklimnya juga. Gimana kalau dari kasusnya di Jakarta?
Soal penggusuran ya?
Iya, soal penggusuran bukan solusi.
Di Jakarta soal penggusuran kami sudah bekerja sama dengan pemerintah, adalah kolaborasi tidak menggusur, tapi kami membangun rekreasi tempat dia akan digusur adalah kampung susun. Contohnya adalah akuarium, dan semua biayanya itu atau komunitas yang mengatur, atau kami di Jakarta itu ada koperasi. Jadi semua biaya, semua cara dan semuanya itu dikelola oleh koperasi. Kampung di kami di Jakarta tidak ada solusinya adalah tidak ada penggusuran, tapi menggeser atau relokasi ke tempat, atau kita membangun kembali kampung itu menjadi kampung susun. Terima kasih.
Yeah, so for Jakarta case, with the current governor, before the election started, they already made a political contract to not doing eviction anymore, and then but they propose other type of solution, for example, relocation or rebuilding the site, rebuilding the kampung, for example, in the vertical housing, vertical kampung type. And they made the community made the proposal, the design by themselves. And also this type of housing, for example, if they choose relocation or rebuilding, are being managed by the cooperative. So in Jakarta, each of the kampung already made cooperative, and they manage the houses, the social housing, the vertical kampung by themselves. Ada lagi Mbak? Bu?
Excellent.
Ya, untuk kami tidak digusur, untuk mencegah banjir, kami mundur ke kali agar perbaikan pinggir kalinya, terus meningkatkan lantai rumah, semua biayanya ada dana dari luar, tapi dikelola semua oleh koperasi.
Oh, okay. And also the another case that happens in Jakarta, many of the kampung are along the river banks, and then in order to build more environmentally healthy relationship with the river, the houses in the kampung are like pushing back, so they cut their houses in order to maintain the setback from the river. And then for the funding itself, sorry, tadi gimana Mbak Wati pendanaannya?
Ya kalau di pinggir kali itu potong rumah, maksudnya
Iya,
potong rumah atau mundur.
Itu pendanaannya gimana?
Pendanaannya kami dari luar, dari CHR atau kami kalau contohnya Marlina itu kami akan lagi dalam proses untuk ke Pemprov DKI Jakarta untuk perbaikan rumah agar kami penataan kampung tidak digusur.
Okay, and then for those cases, they use several different type of funding. For example, using the governor fund to build the vertical kampung in Kampung Aquarium, Kampung Kunir, and then for the on-site upgrading, for example, using the community fund, the savings, and also the funding from HEHR or other fundings from overseas. Ada lagi, Mbak?
You
Yes,
want
udah.
to speak?
Okay, udah ya.
Okay.
All right, that's all from Jakarta. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite the Nepal team to emphasize this point on why evicting people in the name of climate is not a solution for cities and it makes communities worse off.
लक्ष्मी तारा
हजुर दिदी
नि यसमा अलिकति भनिदिनु न अनि के हो भने चाहिँ नि यो अथवा यो के हाम्रो यो क्लाइमेटको त्यो जबरजस्ती उठीबास गर्नु भनेको चाहिँ नि त्यो समस्याको समाधान होइन भन्ने कुरामा अलिकति भन्यो भनेको अलिकति भनिदिन सक्छ हाम्रो सुकुम्बासी बस्तीहरूको अनुभवबाट जस्तै हाम्रो कीर्तिपुरको छ नि हामीले घरहरू बनाएको त्यो भने पनि हुन्छ अलिकति हाउसिङ हैन जबरजस्ती उठीबास गर्नु हुँदैन भनेर है बाढीको नाउँमा अथवा विकासको नाउँमा अथवा वातावरणको नाउँमा लक्ष्मी तारा त्यो अलिकति भनिदिनु न
जबरजस्ती उठीबास भन्नाले सरकारले गर्नु हुँदैन भन्ने पक्षमा
त्यसको उदाहरण अलिकति दिनु भनेको
त्यसमा चाहिँ अब हामी सबै अब मानिसहरूलाई चाहिँ आफ्नो बस्नुपर्ने र अब जिउनुपर्ने अधिकार छ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई त्यसमा बस्नु अनि सरकारले चाहिँ जबरजस्ती अब सुकुम्बासी बस्ती भयो या अब घर जग्गा नहुने आफ्नो नाममा चाहिँ लाल पूर्जा घर जग्गा नहुनेहरूलाई पनि बाँच्न र बस्नको लागि चाहिँ बस्नको दिनुपर्ने छ त्यो चाहिँ दिनु नै पर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ सरकारले चाहिँ हामी मानिसहरूलाई चाहिँ अब त्यसरी अब उठीबास बिन चाहिँ गर्नु हुँदैन जस्तो लाग्छ अनि हाम्रो यो अब लुमन्तीले गर्नुभएको कीर्तिपुरको उसमा चाहिँ त्यो सुकुम्बासी बस्तीहरूलाई नै अब घरहरू बनाइदिनु भयो नि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि आफ्नो जीवन चाहिँ आफ्नै ढङ्गबाट अब गरिब भए पनि सानो अब त्यो ऋण लिएर घर बनाउनु भयो उहाँहरूले हैन उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ बस्ने अधिकार चाहिँ भयो त्यो चाहिँ अति नै राम्रो पछि जस्तो लाग्छ दिदी मलाई त्यो चाहिँ
Lashmi Tara is saying that everyone has a right to leave, right, and right to stay. So the government need to respect the right of the people to live and to stay. So forced eviction is not the solution for any region, right? And she also talked about the example of Lumanti, example from Lumanti, that Lumanti has actually helped people to leave, actually coordinated with the government for resettlement, where people could stay and enjoy the right of living. So those kind of like activities need to be replicated or need to be promoted. So forced eviction is not a solution from our experience.
अनि त्यस्तै गरी अहिले विभिन्न ठाउँमा हामीले अब सहकारी मार्फत पनि अब बस्नको लागि हैन अनि घरहरू अब एकदम न्यून आय भएको अब व्यक्तिहरूलाई चाहिँ ऋण दिएर चाहिँ आफूलाई बस्न खानलाई त भइहाल्यो बस्नको लागि चाहिँ सुरक्षित अब घरहरू बनाउनलाई चाहिँ ऋणहरू दिएको चाहिँ छ सहकारीबाट अनि एकदम सानो सानो अब रकमबाट चाहिँ
talking that from the this community women's forum, the network that she belongs to is a network of the saving and credit cooperatives led by women. So these the saving and credit cooperatives also giving loans to the very poor families, to the very poor members to build a house, right? To build a house so that they can actually improve their living condition, improve their shelter, and enjoy their living there. So this is the kind of the activity that the cooperative has been actually promoting, also in order to prevent the eviction as well. So in case if the upgrading of the settlement takes place, the risk of eviction also goes down. So they have been actually providing loan for the poor families to build a better house.
दिदी म यति नै भन्नुहुन्छ यो चाहिँ अब विभिन्न ठाउँको अब हाम्रो नेपालको पनि सहरहरू छ नि विभिन्न ठाउँको जस्तै यहाँ काठमाडौँ भयो ललितपुर भयो अनि ललितपुरको पनि अब सानो सानो गाउँमा जस्तै थैबो भयो अनि थेचो भयो मच्छे गाउँको अब काठमाडौँको मच्छे गाउँ ठाङकोट सबै सहकारीहरूमा चाहिँ यो लोनहरू चाहिँ हामीले अब दिएको छ भन्नु पर्यो अनि काठमाडौँ बाहिरको अब विराटनगर इटेरी उता पनि अब घर बनाउन पोखरामा पनि हाउजिङ सानो घरहरू बनाउनको लागि चाहिँ सानै लोनहरू चाहिँ दिएको उदाहरणहरू धेरै नै छ
They have been providing loan to the cooperatives, mobilizing the loan to the cooperatives, making people, helping people actually to get access to finances, to easy finances in a number of communities in Kathmandu Valley and also outside the valley as well.
Very good, Lakshmi. Very good. So what we are learning from what Lakshmi is telling us, evictions is not only not a solution, but communities have proven again and again that they can be an asset and be part of the solution, making cities more resilient. On that note, I will invite Ruby Haddad to build on this point from the Philippines. Welcome, Ruby.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I think the strategy of the Federation now is that you have to know how to better understand the situations of your community so that you will not be easily evicted. So by doing the non-physical measure like the profiling, the enumeration survey is a big help to make the community understand their situation. For example, one experience in Muntinlupa City that this city government tell them that they have to be evicted because they have experienced flooding. But because the community do the enumeration survey or the profiling, so they are more understand the situation on what they are in. So they told the local government that we need only to upgrade our drainage so that we will not be experience the flooding. So if the community doesn't know the situations, they can easily evicted. But because they know the situation now, because they profile, they know the demographic, they know the situations of the community, they can really negotiate with the government on how the solution could be so that they will not be experience the flooding. So by doing the profiling, it gives also the community the power to negotiate with the government, and then they can also help the government frame the better solutions rather than the eviction, because if they know the situations of the community, they can provide ahead plans and solutions for the affected family. So maybe the profiling really helps on how the government frame their solutions in terms of displacing communities or giving the right relocation for the community, because they know how many families are affected, how many families are to be upgraded so that they will not experience flooding. So I think that doing the profiling is really helping both the community and the local government frame the good solution for them. So this is how we also promote the profiling in different cities, because most of the time the city government or the local government doesn't have the real data of how many families needing housing, how many families need assistance in terms of climate issues. Thank you, Celine.
Excellent, Ruby. This is such a good example of how you actually help the city with information by collating your own data, information that the city doesn't have, of where these vulnerable communities are located, or where the informal cities are located, informal communities are located. And this data becomes very useful and one of the strategies to build your resilience, because the better information you have and the city has, the better response and the quicker response from the side of the city and from the side of the community. I will now open the floor to other members in the attendee list to comment on any of these. And to repeat the 4 points again: organized communities make very good partners to cities. Communities make unsafe places safer. More resilience is more costly. Evicting people in the name of climate is not a solution and makes it worse. Who would like to come in? Can I invite, should I take names or will people just come in? I would love to call Suhaili to talk. Suhaili, you want to tell us about Junaida and the riverside communities?
Celine, Amrita Lama from Nepal would like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Celine, for inviting me. Yes, yeah, because I was listening the webinar, and I was thinking like how in Junaida we could achieve, like the communities could actually achieve with their organization and like what you were saying, like organized communities are better partners. And as Ruby just mentioned about the profiling, so we had that database and we had the information with that. And you know, it's very interesting, like how Junaida, one community, you know about that, you were in the CAN workshop. So how they acted very smartly when the city wanted to take a pathway along the river, and in normally they would have been evicted, you know, to make the pathway, but they were pretty smart since they were very organized. So they had their plan and they developed the plan in the workshop, and now little by little they're trying to implement, and whenever they're making the houses, they are actually now facing towards the river, towards the pathway. The pathway hasn't been built by the city yet, but since they actually plan together, they are actually implementing it. Whenever they have new houses, when we go there, we see the faces towards the river, towards the pathway. So you know, you see, like when communities are organized, they have the actual database, and as Ruby mentioned, I completely agree. Like they have then the negotiating tool to negotiate with the city. So yeah, this is, I think, all I wanted to share here.
Perfect.
And I would like to add something, like what we were discussing. It's true, like when we were trying to make resilient housing, the cost is going up. It's true in one hand, but if we see it a little bit differently, like when the community is taking lead, the cost is actually getting lower, you know, because many people, like many houses are building together. Because we have one example in Bangladesh, in the coastal area, there were a few houses were built after the Ayla, and the cost was really lowered down because the community worked together. So by this process, we can somehow, I think, neutralize the cost, you know, like when people are building together, the cost is not that much high, but when they are trying for individually, yeah, so the process is also important here.
Absolutely, that's such an important point, Suhaili, that when we are alone, an individual family, everything becomes so expensive. But when we are organized and we do these same actions as a collective, the costs go down. Yeah. Very, very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to come in? Anyone else? Anybody from the ACHR office? Tom, would you like to come in? Anish Loma.
हेलो म्याम नमस्ते।
भन्नुहोस् तपाईको कुरा।
अब हाम्रो त यो बाढी क्षेत्र नै घोषणा छ हैन दिदी, अनि के गर्नु जहिले पनि अब यो उसमा चाहिँ के अरे यो हिउँदमा चाहिँ ठिकै हुन्छ, जब असार साउन लागेपछि यहाँ चाहिँ कुन बेला बाढी आउँछ भने थाहै हुँदैन। अनि यसपालि त झन् कार्तिकमै आइपुग्यो हैन। अब त्यो बाढी त त्यतिखेर बाढी आउने बेला त होइन, त्यस्तो भएर बाढी आउँछ। अब यता केसलिया खोला छ, उता पूर्वमा उयो सिङ्या खोला छ, त्यो धेरै भएपछि यहाँ फ्यालिहाल्छ पानी। अब यहाँ त धेरैभन्दा धेरै अल्गो घर बनाउनु पर्यो 5 फुट जति हैन। अब त्यति अल्गो गर्नलाई त बजेटले पनि भ्याइँदैन यहाँको मान्छे चाहिँ। त अब डेली काम गरेर खाने मान्छेहरू हुन्छ गरिब, अनि मध्यम वर्गको मान्छेलाई अब केटाकेटी पढाउने कि अब घर बनाउने कि समस्या हुन्छ नि त। अनि त्यो अलिकति अब यो लिमन्तीले अब जे भने पनि यति सहयोग गरिदिनु भएको छ, त्यसलाई म धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु हैन। अब त्यही हो, अलि बजेट चाहिँ हामीलाई सरकारले चाहिँ अनुदान गरिदिनु भएको भए हुन्थ्यो। अब हामी नै हेर्नु न, मेरै घरबाट झ्यालबाट पानी पसेको। अब हजुर अस्ति आएर देख्नुभयो होला नि, हाम्रो घर त अल्गै नै छ, अहिले झन् बाटो अल्गो बनाएर झन् तल भयो।
Okay, Asla Dhanyavad. She's Amrita Lama, again from Biratnagar, and what she's saying that, so they have been experiencing unexpected flood, unseasonal flood. And for that reason, they have been in a big trouble, and they have been raising wind level high in order to protect the houses from water getting inside the houses. And so what she also emphasized that, if there is some kind of subsidy grant available from the government, it would be a big help for the poor families in the city. Okay, that's all from Amrita, very briefly. Amrita ji, dhanyabad.
So Lajana, I would now like to invite you. Yes. We have the last 15 minutes, and it will be good to decide how we want to use these last 15 minutes. So I would like to invite you to just synthesize what you have seen and observed in all the conversations so far, and what you see as the next steps for all these groups at ACHR.
Thank you, Celine. See, actually, so the communities are making a lot of efforts. We have actually heard examples from Indonesia, Philippines, Nepal, right, and Bangladesh. So we heard there are so many good examples. People have been working so hard. The communities have been working so hard. They're making a lot of investment in working, in partnership with the communities, or also mobilizing the financial resources in order to stay, in order to build resilience, in order to save lives, like in order to address all the issues related to climate. They may not even know what climate issues is, why they are having these problems, why there is unexpected floods, why these unexpected kind of like disaster that they are facing every year. It's a new things happening, and every time there is a flood or there is some kind of disaster, they just have to work very hard. They just get into trouble, and they have to spend more money in order to stay safe, right? And although they have been coordinating with the local governments also influencing the policy formulations for better policies in order to get more protection from the governments, but I really don't think, and this is really happening at scale. So there may be there is something happening in some communities, some cities, but then this is not at scale. What we need to maybe build on is more examples, more coordinations, and more financial support from the government and also from donors organizations allocated in order to build a resilience in the communities, that actually we don't see it. Some very few projects, that is regarded as a pilot, and when we say it's a pilot, like, as a demonstration, it just get limited into pilot, like, it doesn't get scaled up, it doesn't get expanded, right? And I think, like, more need to be done in order to build resilience. People are willing to do it. There are many good examples, so there's a lot of things, like, we can actually learn from the people. So in this 1.5 hour discussion, we just heard very, very few examples, but then there are many, many more. Many communities are struggling, many are working very hard, and with little support from the government. We heard from the Biratnagar example, like, they have, the poor families, they have to spend more in building a resilient house, and they have to take loan, and there's no subsidy and nothing that, so they're just hoping that if there is, some kind of support from the government as well, it will actually build their lives. And it's not only a house, they have to build a drainage, they have to build a sewerage system, the sanitation part, the waste management part, all related, like, all related, all very important activities that need adequate attention from the government in terms of better policy, in terms of allocation of resources, in terms of strengthening the community's effort, like, to build resilient, to make really resilient communities, and the resilient communities contribute in making the cities resilient, the country resilient. So it's not, we are not talking, like, the community experiences in isolation. It is a part of the city, it is a part of the nation, and also contributes in the global resilience as well. So we need to have this a better, a bigger, wider perspective, and give emphasis in the communities, in building the community's resilience. So I stop here, Celine, now.
Thank you so much, Lajana, for your message. I think this is what is going to take us through the next year. Just very briefly, on ICAD's side, ICAD's job is to not only be a convening organization of bringing different voices together. Though it is a research organization, ICAD's main thrust over the last couple of years has been how to bring voices from the global south, and especially from communities on the front line to the forefront. And because ICAD is a research-based organization that understands climate both in its adaptation form and its mitigation form, it has a huge influencing power at COP27. And we hope, in our limited, whatever influence ICAD has, we want to use this to the best of our ability. And Professor Salimul Haq wants to do this. He wants to bring the voices of different categories of poor communities to COP27. And the sharper we are, the more refined we are in giving our messages, the easier it will be to take these messages across. And therefore, I urge you to take today's discussion points and to actually synthesize them, make them, easy for your communities to understand, make it easy for the influencers to understand, and build on this agenda for the next year. And we hope to see you at the next Gobeshona, which will be in 2023 around the same time. We look at this as a long journey of another 10 to 15 years together. We want the communities in Asia to be able to shine, to be able to build their capacity, to grow, and to participate in these conversations. And I'm feeling so proud today that in spite of all the language barriers, we were able to maximize participation of our communities. Would anybody else like to have the last word? Tom, can I invite you? Gugun, can I invite you to close the session? Gugun.
Hello. Hello.
I invite you to close the session, Gugun.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Very clearly. So Gugun is speaking from Yogyakarta.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I just want to add a small thing quickly about the relation government and the community. I have small experience in Jakarta, especially in riverside side, how relation government with the community, and sometimes people found the dead body that flow in the river by criminal, yeah, or by accident, and government cannot control or monitor the river all the time, but the people that live in the riverside live for 24 hours, so they can report to the government or to the authority about the dead body, and also about another things like flooding. So I think community important to keep stay and collaborate, yeah, with the government, not evict to other place, so they can also have belonging feeling in that area, and they will also keep the area also, not only the government is not uh, powerful, but is to keep all the things, so we need the work together with the community. That's it, Celine. Sorry, my English so terrible.
No, your English good. We all understand what
Thank
you
you.
say. Very good. I see Nidhi Shreya also wants to be the last one. Lajana, does Nidhi want to speak? Nidhi, I see your hand up. Did you want to say something? We have the last 5 minutes.
You can unmute and speak.
लग्ना दिदी
भन्नुहोस् न
म नन्द कुमारी है म चाहिँ यहाँ टोखाबाट गरिरहेको छु जुन हाम्रो अहिले यो सुकुम्बासीको उठ्ने कुराहरू गर्नुभयो नि त्यसमा चाहिँ अब सुकुम्बासी मात्र नभइकन अहिले जति पनि विकासको नाममा ठुल्ठुलो बाटोहरू बनाइरहेछ नि त त्यो ठुल्ठुलो बाटोहरू बनाइरहेको जुन स्थानीय बासिन्दाहरू पनि अहिले सुकुम्बासी हुने अवस्था भइसक्यो किन भन्दा विकासको नाममा उनीहरूलाई त्यो जग्गा जति पनि छ जग्गा घरहरू भत्काएर चाहिँ बाटोहरू ठुल्ठुलो बनाउने त्यस्तो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ उनीहरूलाई क्षतिपूर्ति पनि केही पाएको छैन त्यसले गर्दा पनि अहिले जुन सुकुम्बासीको अवस्था छ अनि जुन यो विकासको नाममा एउटा विकृतिको रूपमै भएको जस्तो पनि लाग्छ कि अहिले चाहिँ अब टोखाको अवस्था हेर्ने हो भने त्यो 32 फिटको बाटो यताउता भनेर चाहिँ अहिले धेरै जग्गा जमिनहरू घरहरू भत्काइरहेछ नि त त्यसले गर्दा पनि एउटा चाहिँ सुकुम्बासी हुने अवस्था भएको छ भने अहिले चाहिँ जति पनि सार्वजनिक ठाउँहरू छ त्यही विकासको नाममा सार्वजनिक स्वरूपलाई पनि परिवर्तन गरेको छ के अहिलेलाई चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ यही भन्नु थियो हैन अनि जुन अघि सुकुम्बासीको कुरा उठ्यो जुन प्राकृतिक रूपमा हरेक चीजबाट यो उठी बास लाउने कुरामा छ नि अलिकति जोड्न मन लागेको चाहिँ यो हो मलाई चाहिँ
Okay, ल धन्यवाद. What Nanda Kumari, her name is Nanda Kumari. So what she's actually saying that it's not only the informal settlers, not only the informal settlements are affected, are affected. Not only they are vulnerable for eviction, but even the other communities especially the communities along the roadside, they are also vulnerable to evictions in the name of the road widening projects. The residents of the communities along the roadsides, who actually owns the houses, who have the land ownership documents, they are also getting vulnerable and they are being bulldozed, they are being evicted. So in the name of the development, the projects such as road widening projects, in the name of the road widening projects, widening road, everyone is getting affected in the cities. That is also a big issue, that the communities, it's not only the informal settlers, but even the formal settlers, the formal residents are also affected by these kind of activities, and it's a big challenge and a big problem for the communities. That is what Nanda Kumari is raising. Okay, Celine.
Yeah. On that note, I think we've got the message very clear that evictions only makes it worse for the communities, and communities have already proven to our cities that we can support them in finding solutions. Wishing ACHR all the best on your climate journey. And ICCAD will always be there if you want to use ICCAD as a sounding board, or you need to, ask any more questions in strengthening your own strategy, we will be very happy to help you. Good luck, all of you.